Hey everyone, welcome to this session on front-end interview questions. If you are preparing for a front-end developer role, understanding HTML is a must. Today, we will go through some of the most commonly asked front-end interview questions, and I will explain them in a way that's easy to grasp. So let's dive right in. So the first thing, what is HTML? HTML stands for Hypertext Markup Language, and it's the backbone of every web page. It provides the structure of a web page using tags. Think of it like the blueprint of building. Without HTML, a web page couldn't exist. For example, if you want to display a heading, a paragraph, or an image, you use HTML tags like h1 tag, p tag, or image tag. Now let's come to the next question. What are semantic elements in HTML? Now you might have heard of semantic elements in HTML. These are texts that describe their meaning in a clear and human readable way. For example, header tag represents the top section of a web page, footer tag is for the bottom section, article tag is used for self-contained content, and section tag divides content into meaningful sections. So, why does this matter? Well, semantic elements improves SEO and accessibility by making it easier for search engines and screen readers to understand the content. Next question, inline versus block elements. Now let's talk about inline versus block element, which is a common question in front-end interview. So inline elements like span tag and a tag don't start on a new line and take only the space they need. And block elements like div tag and p tag start on a new line and stretch across the entire width. Imagine you have a paragraph of text and you want to highlight just a word in bold. You would use an inline element like span tag. But if you want to group multiple paragraphs together, you would use a block elements like div tag. Next question, what is a list in HTML? Lists are super important in HTML for organizing content. So we have three types. First, unordered, second, ordered list, and third, definition list. So let's understand one by one. First, unordered list. It creates a bullet list. So I have given an example also how you can use it. Second is ordered list. This creates a numbered list. Okay. And the last, definition list. This is used for terms and description. Okay. You can use it for understanding. Okay. Lists help in creating menus, navigation links, and structured content. Next question is difference between div tag and span tag. This is another common interview question. Div tag is a block level element, meaning it starts on a new line and takes up the full width available. And span tag is an inline element, meaning it stays on the same line and is used to style a small portion of text. So here I also have given an example. Okay. Use div tag for layout structure and span tag for styling small text portions. Okay. Now next question, what is the doc type declaration? At the very top of an HTML file, you will often see this. Okay. Doc type HTML. This tells the browser which version of HTML we are using. In modern web development, we use HTML5, so we write exclamation doc type HTML. Pages in quirks mode causing layout issues. Next question is, what is the iframe tag used for? The iframe tag allows us to embed external content into our web page. For example, if you want to embed a YouTube video, you can use this, okay, as shown on your screen. Other common uses include embedding Google Maps, other web pages, or dashboards. Next question is difference between B tag and strong tag. Both B tag and strong tag make text bold, but there is a key difference. B tag is just for visualizing styling, and strong tag conveys semantic importance, helping SEO and accessibility. If search engines or screen readers see strong tag, they prioritize the text more. Next question is, what are meta tags in HTML? Meta tags go inside the head section and provide metadata about a web page. They help with SEO and browser behavior. I also mentioned a code in front of your screen. Okay. So these tags tell search engines what your page is about, improving its visibility. Next question is, what are HTML tags? Okay. Finally, let's discuss HTML tags. An HTML tag is a keyword enclosed in an angle bracket that defines an element. Tags come in pairs, an opening tag and a closing tag. Some tags like image and BR don't have closing tags. Now we are diving into some of the most commonly asked CSS interview questions. Whether you are preparing for a front-end developer role or just brushing up on your skill, these questions will help you strengthen your understanding. Let's get started. So let's begin with the basics. CSS stands for Cascading Style Sheets. It is used to style HTML elements and control how they look on a web page. Without CSS, every web page would just be plain text and image stacked on the top of each other. Imagine you are trying to browse the web without colors, layout or animations. It would be a pretty boring experience, right? With CSS, we can apply styles to elements using different selectors like class, ID and even elements name. And the best part, CSS helps us create responsive designs, making websites look great on all screen sizes. Next question is, explain selectors in CSS. Alright, now that we know what CSS is, let's talk about selectors. A selector is basically how we choose which element we want to style. So the first we have element selector. It targets all the instances of a specific tag. For example, P curly braces inside which I have passed color blue and semicolon applies to all P tag elements. Second is class selectors. Use a dot followed by the class name. Example, dot my class applies to any element with class equals to my class. Okay. Next is ID selectors. Use a hash followed by the ID. Unlike classes, IDs should be unique per page. Next one is universal selector. Targets all elements on the page. Okay. And the last, attribute selectors and pseudo selectors. These allow even more specific targeting, like styling all input fields of type text or selecting elements in a specific state. Next question is, what's the difference between visibility, hidden and display none? So this is a classic interview question. Both visibility, hidden and display none are used to hide elements, but they work differently. First, visibility, hidden, makes the element invisible, but it still takes up space on the page. Think of it like turning the element invisible while keeping its footprint. Next, display none removes the element entirely from the layout as if it was never there. The other elements will move up and take its place. So let me give you a quick tip. If you need an element to take up space but not be visible, use visibility. Hidden, if you need it gone completely, use display none. Next question is, what's the difference between CSS grid and Flexbox? This is an important one. Both CSS grid and Flexbox help us with layout design, but they serve different purposes. First, CSS grid works in two dimensions, both rows and columns. It is perfect for designing entire web page layouts. Next, Flexbox works in one dimension, either a row or a column. It is best for aligning and distributing elements inside a container. Think of CSS grid like a full blueprint for your web page, while Flexbox is great for handling alignment within sections. Next is, what's the use of the float property? The float property is used to position elements to the left or right within their container. It was widely used before Flexbox and Grid came along. For example, if you want an image to be aligned to the left of a paragraph, you can use float left on the image. However, float can sometimes cause layout issues, so it is generally better to use Flexbox or Grid for layouts today. Next question is, what is the CSS box model? The box model is fundamental to understanding how elements are sized and spaced on a web page. Every element in CSS is basically a box and it consists of four parts. First one is content, the actual text or image inside the element. Second is padding, space between the content and the border. Third one is border, the outer edge of the element. And the last, margin, the space outside the border separating the element from others. If you have ever had trouble with elements not aligning properly, it is often because of the box model. Next is what is Flexbox. Flexbox is a layout model that allows us to align items dynamically inside a container. It is one-dimensional, meaning it works in either a row or a column, not both at the same time like grid. For example, using display flex on a container makes all its children flexible. You can then use property like justify content center to align items horizontally. Next, align items center to align them vertically. And last, flex colon wrap to allow items to wrap to the next row if needed. Flexbox makes it super easy to build responsive layouts. Next question is, what is Z-index in CSS? The Z-index property controls the stacking order of elements. If two elements overlap, Z-index determines which one appears in front. For example, if you have two elements and you want one to be on top, you can set the given syntax in your code. Okay? So here element 1 will appear in front because it has a higher Z-index. Next question is, how can we include CSS in a web page? Basically, there are 4 ways to include CSS in a web page. First one is inline CSS, using the style attribute inside an HTML tag. Okay, I have shown you example. Okay, and it is not recommended for larger projects. Next is internal CSS, placing styles in the style tag in the head. Okay, I have also given you an example how can you use it, and it is good for small projects but can make the HTML file bulky. Third one is external CSS, linking a separate .css file using a link tag. Here I have given an example you can see in front of your screen. It is the best practice for large projects. Next one is @import, means importing another CSS file inside an existing one. Okay, so here I have given you an example. Okay, this method works but it can slow down page rendering. Next question is, what is a CSS preprocessor? A CSS preprocessor like says or less extends CSS by adding features like variable, nesting, mixins. Instead of writing plain CSS, you can write in says or less and then compile it into regular CSS. This makes managing large style sheets much easier. Next is JavaScript. Okay, now we are diving into JavaScript, the backbone of interactivity on the web. JavaScript makes websites dynamic, allowing us to build everything from interactive buttons to full-fledged applications. Let's go over some important interview questions one by one. So first is, what is JavaScript? JavaScript is a high-level dynamically typed programming language that adds interactivity to web pages. Unlike HTML and CSS, which define structure and styling, JavaScript controls behavior. It runs in browsers but can also be used on the backend with technologies like Node.js. Imagine you have a form on a website. JavaScript ensures that when you click submit, it validates the input and prevents incorrect data from being sent. Next question is, what is the difference between var, let and const? Okay. A classy JavaScript question. These three are used to declare variables, but they behave differently. Var is a function scope and is hoisted, meaning it is moved to the top of the function before execution, but it is not recommended due to potential issues. Next is let. Let is blocked scoped, meaning it only works inside the block where it is defined. It can be reassigned. And the last, const, is also block scoped but cannot be reassigned once declared. Perfect for values that shouldn't change. Next question is, what is the difference between double equals to and triple equals to in JavaScript? This question trips up many beginners. Double equals to checks only values and allows type coercion, automatic type conversion. And triple equals to check both values and data types, ensuring strict comparison. So always use triple equals to for strict comparisons. Next question is, what is DOM? Okay, DOM stands for Document Object Model. It is the structure of a web page represented as a tree, where every element like p tag, h1 tag, div tag is a node. With JavaScript, we can manipulate the DOM dynamically. So our next question is difference between null and undefined in JavaScript. These two seem similar but have different meanings. Okay. Null means nothing. It is intentionally set to be empty. And undefined means that the variable exists but has no value assigned. So here I have given an example. Think of null as an empty box and undefined as a missing box. Our next question is, what are event listeners in JavaScript? Event listeners are functions that wait for user actions like clicks, key presses, or form submissions. So here I have given you an example. This will show an alert when the button is clicked. So now let's move on to the next question. Explain the concept of closures in JavaScript. A closure is when a function remembers variable from its parent scope even after the parent function has finished executing. So here I have given an syntax. Here inner function remembers count even though outer function has finished running. Next is, what is the purpose of this keyword in JavaScript? The this keyword refers to the object that calls a function. Its value depends on how the function is called. Okay. So here I have given an example. Here this dot name refers to Rahul. Okay. Next question is, what are promises in JavaScript? Promises handle synchronous operations like API's calls. They have three states: pending, fulfilled, rejected. Okay. Pending means initial state, fulfilled, operation successful, and rejected, operation failed. Okay. So in the given example, you can see that the promise resolves after 2 seconds logging data loaded. Next question is, what is event delegation in JavaScript? Event delegation lets you add an event listener to a parent element instead of each child. This is useful for dynamically added elements. So here the event is handled by parent instead of attaching listeners to each li tag. Now we are diving into front-end frameworks like React, Angular, and Vue.js. These are essential tools for building modern interactive web applications. So let's go through some common interview questions one by one. So first is, what is React? React is a JavaScript library developed by Facebook for building component-based user interfaces. It makes UI development easier by using a declarative approach, meaning we describe what we want and React figures out how to update the UI efficiently. For example, React is the reason why platforms like Facebook, Instagram, and Netflix feel so fast and dynamic. Our next question is, what is virtual DOM in React? The virtual DOM is a lightweight copy of the actual DOM document object model. Instead of modifying the real DOM directly, which is slow, React updates the virtual DOM first and then applies only the necessary changes to the real DOM. So, why does this matter? This optimizes performance, making React apps faster and smoother. So, our next question is, what is JSX in React? JSX means JavaScript XML lets us write HTML like syntax inside JavaScript. It makes code more readable and easier to write UI components. So here I have given an example. JSX is not valid JavaScript, but React compiles it into JavaScript behind the scenes. So our next question is, what are components in React? So components are the building blocks of a React app. They are reusable and self-contained UI elements. Types of component, okay? So first is functional components using hooks. Second is class-based components, older approach. So here I have given a functional component. Every modern React app is built using components, okay? Now come to the next question, what is Angular? Angular is a TypeScript based framework developed by Google for building single-page application. It provides two-way data binding, dependency injection, and a modular architecture. For example, think of Google applications like Gmail and Google Drive. Many of them are built with Angular. So our next question is, what are components in Angular? Just like React, Angular also uses components as building blocks. Each component consists of a TypeScript class, logic, an HTML template, view, and optional CSS file styles. Okay, everything in Angular is a component. Next question is, what is two-way data binding in Angular? Two-way data binding synchronizes data between the model data and the view UI. If the user updates an input field, the data model automatically updates and vice versa. So here I have given an example. If you type Rahul in the input field, the paragraph will instantly display your name Rahul. Okay. So our next question is, what is lazy loading in Angular? Lazy loading loads only the necessary parts of an app when needed, rather than loading everything at once. Okay, so why is it useful? It reduces initial load time and improves performance. For example, instead of loading all routes at once, Angular can load them on demand using lazy loading. So the next question we have, what are Angular pipes? Pipes in Angulars are used for transforming data before displaying it in a template. Angular provides built-in pipes like uppercase, lowercase, date and currency, but you can also create custom pipes, okay? Now next question is, what is Vue.js? Vue.js is a progressive JavaScript framework used to build single-page applications. It is known for its simplicity, reactivity, and easy learning curve. So why use Vue? It combines the best features of React, Virtual DOM, and Angular two-way binding in a lightweight framework. Okay. So our next question is, what are Vue.js components? Vue.js components are reusable blocks of code that split UI into independent, manageable parts. Next question is, what are props in Vue.js? Props, short for properties, allow data to be passed from a parent components to a child component. Okay? Props make Vue components reusable and dynamic. Our next question is, what is a Vue.js router? Vue router manages navigations in Vue applications, allowing us to create single page applications. Okay? Instead of reloading pages, Vue router dynamically switches between views. Okay? So friends, till now we have covered major front-end frameworks, okay, like React, component-based UI with a virtual DOM, Angular, TypeScript-based framework with two-way binding, and Vue.js, simple reactive framework with easy learning curve. Each framework has its strength and the best choice depends on your project and team preference. If you are preparing for front-end interview, make sure to practice with real projects and explore these frameworks hands-on. Now we are going to cover some additional front-end and Git interview questions that are commonly asked in technical interviews. So let's jump right in. So what is Git? Git is an open source version control system that helps developers track changes in code, collaborate with teams, and manage different versions of a project. So why is Git important? Imagine you are working on a project and something breaks. Git allows you to go back to a previous version. Okay. Next question is, what are the advantages of using Git? So first is version control. Keeps track of code changes. Second is collaboration. Multiple developers can work on the same project. Third one is security. Uses cryptographic hashing SHA-1. And the last, branching and merging. Developers can experiment with new features without affecting the main code. Okay. Now our next question is, what is the difference between Git and GitHub? Git, a local version control system that tracks changes, and GitHub, a cloud-based platform that hosts Git repositories, allowing developers to collaborate. Git is like saving files on your computer, while GitHub is like storing them on your Google Drive, where multiple people can access and contribute. Next question is, what is a repository in Git? A repository repo is a storage location, project files, and their entire version history. So there are basically two types of repositories: local repository, remote repository. Okay. First one exists on your computer, and remote repository hosted on platforms like GitHub, GitLab, or Bitbucket. Now come to the next question. What is local storage? Local storage is a browser API that allows persistent storage of key value data, meaning data remains saved even after closing the browser. Okay. So here I have given you an example. Even if you refresh or reopen the browser, Rahul's name will still be stored. Okay. So next question we have, what is session storage? Similar to local storage, but data only lasts for the session. Once you close the browser tab, the data is lost. Okay. So here I have given an example. If you close and reopen the tab, this data will be gone. Now our last question is, how do you create a table in HTML? Okay. So for that, I have given you a syntax. You can see and learn, okay, how to create a table in HTML. This will create a basic table with a border. Okay. So now we have covered Git and GitHub, version controls and collaboration tools, local storage and session storage, how browsers store data, and HTML tabs, creating structured data in HTML. Understanding these concepts will help you stand out in front-end interviews. Alright, we have covered 50 important front-end interview questions touching on HTML, CSS, JavaScript, frameworks, and even Git. These questions will help you build a solid foundation for your interviews, but remember, just memorizing answers won't be enough. Practice is key. Try applying these concepts in real projects, experiment with code, and do mock interviews to gain confidence. I hope this was helpful. Keep learning, keep coding, and best of luck with your interviews. See you in the next one.